Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And I'll keep this brief, just going through a few headlines on here, just to keep brothers up to date as to what's going on. As we measure the times diligently, being that we are living in perilous times. So I have a couple of headlines here, mainly focusing on, the two main things, right? One here being the deployment, of troops to the ground over there in the east. And it looks like they're using this desire to, well, I'll read it in here, but this desire to basically capture Karg Island, which is where, a good supply of Iran's oil is from. And basically they're trying to use that to say, like, we can use this if we take this over and get this oil and blah, blah, blah out of the hands of so-called terrorists and so on and so forth. But really a lot of these things that we're seeing, it's just leading to a greater escalation. And along those same lines, right, some other headlines we'll get to here is the refusal of NATO allies and, America's quote unquote European allies to join in, because Trump basically is openly, even yesterday he voiced it, openly calling for these other European countries to come in there, to send ships to the Strait of Hormuz to help and open up the region, basically to police it. And a lot of them are just like, no, flat out, no, we're not going to do that, because we're not trying to get involved in this war. Even the UK, which came out and said, look, this was a unilateral thing. This isn't like this isn't done on the sense like you weren't attacked, right? To say, okay, now all my other NATO allies, you got to come and help me. You went and attacked them. That was a unilateral decision. That wasn't a decision in the body. All right. So we're not obligated to come in and involve our countries in a war you've started. So what is that doing? Now, ultimately, whether they will go in there. All right. But as this thing escalates, they're going to see that it's too serious to be able to just sit on the sideline. But this is a foreshadowing leading to or a glimpse of what is spoken about in Revelation, the 17th chapter. So let's get into it. I'll try to keep it brief. Just, you get the information and then we move on, right? So this is from Gulf News. U.S. Marines deploy as Trump weighs seizing Iran's, quote, crown jewel, Karg Island. So let's read a little bit of this here. It says here, the deployment of U.S. Marines to the Middle East is raising fresh questions about Washington's next moves in the escalating conflict with Iran, and whether Tehran's key oil export hub on Karg Island, often described as the crown jewel of Iran's energy sector, could become a target. Now, keep in mind that in doing this, right, and you say you're gonna deploy troops over there and try to take that over, it's gonna be next to impossible. But what it's gonna do, and I think this is something important to look at, is what we start to see here is they set goals, right? They claim these are the goals. This is the mission, right? The target of the mission, but they don't ever really achieve them. And some think, okay, well, then they just failed at whatever it is they were trying to do. But if you really look at the bigger picture here, it doesn't really seem like the goals that they set, that they tell people are the actual intent or the actual goal over there. So what do I mean? One example is you could use the cover of, oh, we got to go up in there and seize Karg Island. But behind the scenes, your real goal might be, well, we want to draw out more countries into this world war, because on a higher scale, we need more countries. And I'm just scrolling up because I'm not interested in seeing that whatever is playing down here. What the hell is this shit? Bruh. All right, we'll just leave that there. Like we're talking about serious matters. You see in this playing down here. Anyway, you're trying to draw more nations. You know Russia's gonna get involved if you there's a certain line and a certain boundary that when Iran comes out and says, yeah, we're working with our partners, Russia and China and so on and so forth, they have agreements, they have discussions where it's like, okay, pulse checks and when is what threshold should be crossed before we need your help or we need you to jump in. Okay, that's what a guard does. That's the role that Russia is gonna play. So they're not just gonna sit there and say, oh yeah, just go up in there and just topple them. No, but then again, they're not gonna jump in prematurely either. But this is doing is escalating, right? It's escalating this war as you see the levels, right, from that back and forth to a regional war to a global war where you have your world war. You have all these countries being drawn in there, okay, and that's usually how it goes. And these countries for now that are saying nah, they're rejecting it. As time goes on and things get more dire, they're gonna come in there anyway. All right, they're gonna come in there anyway. But just keep in mind that this rejection, which we're gonna see right as we read these articles, this rejection to help the U.S. and join in this war is a sign. It's a foreshadowing of eventually what side they're gonna be on once this war fully pops off. Where we are, or where we at with it? Right. So it says here, Karg Island, often described as the crown jewel of Iran's energy sector, could become a target. A Marine Expeditionary Unit, MEU, typically consisting of around 2,500 to 3,000 personnel, has been deployed to the region as tensions rise in the Gulf. What that is a foot in the door. That's what you call a foot in the door. When you send in these Marines in there for whatever purpose it is, one, what's going to happen is no, they're not going to accomplish anything significant over there. What will happen is they will get killed and get decimated, and that will give you an excuse. That's why it's a foot in the door to say we need to send in more. All right, because now the casualties have gone up. Now they're attacking. You send them there. You literally send them into a war zone, a danger zone. What do you think is going to happen? Okay. So it's just a foot in the door. And right now you're seeing they're using, and these are not new tactics. It's just new stories using the same tactics. So that's why we're not ignorant of Satan's devices. The move comes as U.S. President Donald Trump is reportedly weighing the possibility of seizing Karg Island, a strategic facility that handles most of Iran's crude exports. When they come out and they tell you, oh, he's weighing this, he's considering this, it's not the decision is already made. The reason they have to do it that way is the same reason when you meet a chick, you can't just grab her up and be like, you coming with me. You gotta talk to her, she gotta get to know you, you gotta familiarize yourself with her, and then eventually, even though in your mind and in her mind, you both know what the end goal is, you both want the end goal, but you still got to get the quote unquote formalities out the way. Oh, you're talking to her a bit, then you driving the conversation a certain kind of way, and then blah 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 blah. That's what this is. This is like foreplay, right? Oh yeah, he's he's considering this, and they might do this, or we might go in there, but we'll see. That's foreplay. All that's doing is just warming up the minds of the people to say like, hey, it's a possibility, so they don't just dive right up in there. All right, but eventually, majority of the time, when he comes out and says we're thinking about or we might, what do they end up doing? The same thing. Okay. According to Axios citing U.S. officials, the option is being considered as Washington searches for ways to break Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, the critical shipping route of global oil supplies. And that's not going to be the case. So they are definitely, using this to the fullest, right? They're using this to the fullest. And as the squeeze gets tighter and tighter and tighter, you'll start to see, more desperation set in. Okay, that's the thing about this for example, if you were caught in the grip of an anaconda, right, and it starts to tighten itself around you, most people think initially of the first thing, right? Like, let's say it wraps itself around your neck, right? Like, damn, they choked me out. But a lot of people forget the other effects that happen as it starts to squeeze tighter and tighter and tighter. It's not just your oxygen, it's not just your neck. Now your bones are damn near about to break. And now you're feeling pain in different places you didn't even think about. Okay, so what that looks like now is people think, oh, oil went up, so gas prices are going up. That's the main thing people think about. But as this goes on longer and longer, you'll start to feel more pains in different parts that you didn't even think about. Where you're thinking, yo, it's not just gas, but now this is happening, that is happening, this is happening, that is happening. And it's sometimes it's through these things that people actually find out and learn new things that, oh, by the way, crude oil, which then is refined, is used for more than just gas. But they never really had a reason to think that far. Okay? Because there's so many abstractions on the things you use today. You don't really think of how the food gets to the grocery store. You just think about what your job is, which is to go there, buy it, prepare it, and eat it. But nothing really, prompts you to think a little further as to all the mechanics in the chain of supply. Cool. So moving on, the next one here. Its title is pretty interesting, right? The Lonely War. Trump seeks allies. NATO says no. Let's see here. Yeah. So reading just a little bit of this headline. U.S. seeks allied military support as Iran war widens. But NATO partners, including the UK, Germany, and Japan, which Japan is not part of NATO, but it's an ally, refuse to join U.S.-led Israel campaign. It says U.S. President Donald Trump, who had initially framed the American-Israeli strikes on Iran as a swift decapitation operation, expected to be completed within hours and stabilized within days, is now seeking military support from allies as the conflict widens. This highlights two things, two key points here, right? One, the stupidity and ignorance of the general American people that believe what this guy says. And two, the limitless, right? The limitless bounds of lies, or what extent that they would go to manipulate markets and manipulate people's minds. Because if people actually believe this guy who came out and said, I always go back to this, you literally have to just look back at history. It's not even that long ago. What happened about 6 years ago when they implemented the lockdowns? What did they say? They said 2 weeks. Is that not what they said? Oh, we got to flatten the curve. You have Fauci on TV, right? We got to flatten the curve, 2 weeks. 2 years later, your ass is still here. What happened to the 2 weeks? The 2 weeks never came. You get a week into, we'll go another 2 weeks. Oh, in 2 weeks. It's been 4 months. What kind of 2 weeks are these? Prophetic 2 weeks? So it's the same thing. Oh, yeah, this war, what, 3 to 4 weeks. Then 2 weeks later, oh, yeah, no, it's only 3 to 4 weeks. 5 months later, 3 to 4 weeks. And that's what they keep doing. That's literally the one step at a time. Okay. Number two, he came out and said not too long ago, we've won. He said, oh, we've won the war. They're completely decimated. They basically have no force, no naval power, nothing left. So why are you seeking help to go to the Strait of Hormuz? So one of the actual nations, I forget which one, responded and said, look, whatever you're asking us to send, like what naval power can we send over there that you don't already have enough artillery or military to accomplish? So if Iran is so weak and decimated left and right, the war is basically over. What's with this call for NATO countries and allies to go up in there and send ships over there? And people don't look at that. They're lying to your ass, telling you that this is and they're doing that deliberately to manipulate the markets. Okay, and people fall for it. Markets go up, markets go down, markets go up, markets go down, markets go up, and it's volatility. All right, but it's all strategic. Remember, this is like guerrilla psychological warfare. Okay, they are. It's all a part of the plan, but the goals that they tell you they're trying to achieve, it's not really the goals that they're trying to achieve. Okay, sometimes the end goal they tell you was never their goal from the start. The process in which they achieve that end goal is sometimes is their actual goal. What do I mean? Oh, we want to seize Karg Island. No, you don't. You just want to send troops over there. How do you seize Karg Island? You have to send troops. See, so we want to seize Karg Island, so we have to send troops. In actuality, we just wanted to send troops over there because we know what that's going to lead to. Iran has we can't afford it. We can't allow them to have nuclear weapons. They're a dangerous country. So you know what? We had to strike them because they were going to strike us first. Oh, is that right? So what was the goal? We regime change. No, it wasn't no regime change. You wanted to start a war. They're not, listen. These people are not idiots. And what I mean by that is the ones giving them their orders know very well the full capability of Iran and how devastating it can be to the world economies. They know that. And they triggered them in that specific way to have this kind of blowback. Just like opening the borders for all those years. Like, I mean, come on, it's not uncommon sense. It is common sense to know what would be the effects of that. You always got to look at the effects of their actions. That's how you can find out the cause. So, let's read a little bit here. It says, where am I at? So, yeah, he's now seeking military support from allies, but governments across NATO and other U.S. partners have indicated they will not join the war, leaving Washington effectively fighting alongside only Israel. The war began with a joint U.S.-Israeli strike aimed at crippling Iran's military command structure and strategic infrastructure. Officials in Washington had privately suggested the operation would quickly neutralize Iran's leadership and deter retaliation. Clearly not the case. I just want to jump and hit some main points on here. Yeah, the Trump administration is now beginning to reach out to allies seeking military participation, particularly naval deployments to secure shipping routes through the Strait of Hormuz and assist in broader regional security operations. Among the countries approached were the United Kingdom, Germany, Japan, South Korea. You mean the same South Korea that you just took your THAAD missile? You just abandoned them while North Korea is out here firing off, testing their missiles. You just abandoned them over there, and you're not even calling them for help? The nerve, man. Australia and Canada, none has agreed to join the military campaign against Iran. NATO members Spain and Belgium have also indicated they will not participate in the U.S.-Israeli strikes. But you know, eventually, like I said, as the squeeze gets tighter, these nations will be forced into that region because it's even though you're seeing, okay, Trump is calling them and this, it's really the Lord doing what he said he was going to do, right? He said it is his determination to gather the nations to that region. So they're going to come there one way or another. On Monday, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer reinforced that position, saying the United Kingdom would not join the war, questioning the legality of the military action against Iran. Starmer said Britain would not follow Washington into the conflict, adding that countries that wished to align with the United States were free to do so, but insisting that when the full consequences of the conflict become clear, his government's decision to stay out would be proven right. Now, the thing about this is that, and the reason they're saying that is, it's not as simple as, oh, just send a few ships over here and then we'll call it a day. No, because the second you send ships in there, they will be attacked. And Iran has been saying that openly, like, yo, you come in here, you are a viable target, and we will hit you. And who's just gonna go there and just keep getting hit? Eventually, that will escalate into, you know, retaliatory measures, and that's how they get drawn into the war. Okay, it's like two people fighting, and then somebody goes in there trying to be a peacemaker and break it up, and they get a fist and an elbow right under the eyeballs, and right to the chin. Now they instead of palms open, trying to separate the fight. Now the palms turn to fists, and now they throwing hands, because that's just how it goes. So they're like, look, we're not trying to put ourselves in that position at all. Let's see here. Yeah, officials within the alliance say several governments were not consulted before the strikes on Iran were launched, reinforcing their reluctance to enter the conflict after the fact. Some countries have allowed legitimate logistical cooperation, such as access to military bases or intelligence coordination, but they have stopped short of joining the combat operations themselves. That's only a matter of time. Let me see. I wonder if I can find where this was mentioned in here. The result is an unusually narrow war coalition for the United States. Militarily, the campaign against Iran is being carried out by American forces alongside Israel, without the participation of NATO allies or other long-standing U.S. security partners. Yeah, and once again, that's because they're looking at it like, look, you went and got yourself into this because you were following Israel, which isn't even a part of NATO. And they've drawn you into this. You went and triggered a nation like Iran, and now this is your mess. Okay, don't try to drag us into it. Nah, we did, because you didn't even consult us. You just went right into it. Okay, so now you deal with it. You clean it up. But like I said, it just has to get bad enough, and that's what they're doing, because the economy doesn't, it takes a while, right? You have to, even if the hits are very impactful, it doesn't happen in like 3 seconds, right? It takes a while, which is what they're doing now. Even if somebody gets stabbed in a vital organ, they don't die in like 30, not even 30 seconds. They don't die in 1 second. Even if they're bleeding out, it takes a few before they're completely out of there. So it says here, Hormuz thaw. Besant says Iranian oil tankers can transit as vessels traffic pick up, which is a lie. And I'm just going to read the summary of this one. I like that they included that nowadays. Trump declares victory while simultaneously urging coalition help. And this is the point I was making earlier. How do you declare victory, but you're asking for help, to do what? Have you not already gotten to victory? President Trump claimed the U.S. has essentially defeated Iran and vowed we will finish the job. But at the same time, he's pressing NATO allies and other countries to join a naval coalition to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. Wait, but if Iran is defeated, then you have no opposition. Why don't you go do it? Iran rejects ceasefire and signals escalation. U.S. weighing major escalation at Karg Island. The White House is considering seizing Iran's main oil export hub on Karg Island, a move that would require U.S. boots on the ground. What's very interesting about this is like the wording. The U.S. is considering seizing. It's like somebody that's in the hood saying, I'm considering becoming president and I'm not too sure. As if you just got up one day and decided you would just the next day be in office. You don't just you don't go into a region like that knowing that Iran, first off, Iran that was looked at as, from the eyes of majority of countries, not being able to stand up against, say, a superpower like the US, have caused a lot more trouble for you than you thought. And on top of that, their allies haven't really like fully even stepped in yet, just like your allies haven't fully even stepped in yet. So this isn't, you don't just consider it and then go up in there and then just seize it. That's going to be yet another escalation. And what they're doing is sort of like when two people go at it, right? They start talking in each other's face, and then eventually they get closer and closer, right? So what's up? Then they put their hands up, but then nobody wants to throw the first punch. So eventually they start calming down, right? And then they turn around and then one of them says something very inflammatory, and then it triggers them all over again. And then this time he might push them, so it's like this it hasn't gone down to a shootout, even though they both got weapons on them, but it's escalating slowly but surely. It's getting there. Okay, So all that time they spent, so what's up? So what's up? What you gonna do? Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, blah 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 blah. That's just taking time. And then just as it looks like, yo, chill, chill, chill. And then somebody says something crazy, and now they back at it. So it's like little escalations here and there, here and there, here and there, keeping the tension there, but ever so slightly escalating it until eventually, they just get to the point where it's like, yo, you pulled out the hammer. It's an inside joke, inside joke. And then boom, they get into it. And that's what we're seeing on a world scale. Europe reluctant to join Hormuz operation. Germany outright rejects it alongside Italy and Greece. They outright, they just said no. All right, N-O. We'll say it in English for your ass. Trump warned of a very bad future for NATO. Oh, there will be a very bad future for NATO if allies don't help reopen the strait. UK also says it won't be NATO-led. Now, something else that's also interesting is you have you have a lack of American sentiment or appetite for this war. On top of that, a lack of appetite from NATO allies and European allies for this war. But what if there was a very devastating false event that affected Babylon, also affected European countries, whether it's on a cyber scale or, on a physical, danger, something being destroyed, whatever. You know what I'm trying to get at. Now that might shift, appetite a bit. Okay, if they try to frame it right, and then try to say, hey, this was actually done by the same people you refused to go up in there and help me go against, that might start to, change those minds a bit more. Just something to throw out there. Anyway, regional attacks and oil shock intensify. Iran continues missile and drone strikes on Gulf energy infrastructure and U.S.-aligned states, while Israeli forces launched wide-scale strikes. Which, yeah, they're also saying that this guy, Bibi, that he's out of there. Okay, now, it's interesting because why would you stay in even stay in the land of Israel after triggering something like that? All right, these people, where they have these bunkers set up for a reason. Okay, so there's a whole lot of talk about this, that, and the third, and this, that, and the third, and sometimes a lot of them get off the world stage through death, not literally, but through the world believing that they're gone. Okay. Then you wonder, yo, what was the guy doing up out there? I thought he was going. No, he was out of there, but now he's back. Anyway, so there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of things going on in the world right now. U.S. allows Iranian. U.S. allows Iranian oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz, says Besant. This guy he needs to stop talking, because all he's doing is bringing down the credibility of anything that comes out of his mouth or the administration that he works for his mouth. So this is Revelation chapter 17, verse, getting to the point, verse 16. It says, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. The 10 horns represent the allies, okay, of the U.S., just to put it plainly. But the ones that are part of the structures that we just read of, right, like NATO and the EU, that forms the beast, okay? It says, these shall hate the whore. The whore is Babylon or America. So they shall hate the whore. You're starting to see that they're not really seeing eye to eye with the whore right now. And as things escalate, it'll get to the point where they're like, look, the juice is not worth the squeeze. In fact, you're doing more harm to us than good. And it's prophesied. And through the hate that they have for the whore, what's going to happen? And shall make her desolate and naked, which is another way of saying they're going to partake in the destruction of Babylon, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. And this is going to be when World War III goes nuclear. And now it's like on a very, very serious level where nations are big nations. I'm talking about Russia and, like we're talking about NATO. And yeah, those nations are using their heavy artillery. During that time, those horns, which were at that time would be previous allies of the whore, which is Babylon, will partake in destroying her. Okay, they're gonna point their missiles. You know what? Why should we point it at Russia? Let's turn it around and let's point it at this bit. But that's prophecy. Okay, so it's not. It's really not a surprise when you start to see this tension and this divide between the allies of the U.S. And regardless of whether they come together or they say, you know what, something has happened and now we all need to go over there to the east, we know what's ultimately going to happen. Okay, so we're just watching the Lord work, right, as prophecy continues to play along. So with that, Lord willing, that was edifying and informative to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakak Wadash. Until next time, Shalom.